The diner smelled like burnt coffee and old grease that October evening in Ashfield, Iowa. 15 Hells Angels filled the booths, leather jackets, hard faces, the kind of men most folks crossed the street to avoid. And standing in the middle of it all was a waitress, 38 years old, tired eyes, an apron stained from a double shift. Her name tag said Delia. She had a coffee pot in her right hand. Her left hand was shaking. But her voice was steady as a church bell. She pointed that finger right at the biggest man in the room, the one everyone called Preacher, the one with the president's patch on his cut, and she said 11 words that changed everything. "Shout at me again, mister, and you're done in this diner." The whole place went quiet. You could hear the clock tick. You could hear a young biker at the counter swallow hard. 30 men who had ridden across 3 states. Men who had faced down SWAT teams and crooked cops and worse. All of them watching this little waitress with her shaking hand and her steady voice. And then Wade Caldwell, 68 years old, stood up from his booth. What he did next, nobody in that diner ever forgot. Not the bikers, not the cook, not the old widow Roz Kowalski who owned the place. Because sometimes the toughest man in the room is the one brave enough to bow his head. This is that story. The alarm clock went off at 4:45. Delia Brennan reached out from under the quilt and slapped it quiet. She lay there a moment, looking at the water stain on the ceiling, counting the days until rent was due. 7 days. She had $83 and some change in the coffee can by the fridge. Rent was $650. The math didn't work. It hadn't worked for a while now. She swung her feet onto the cold floor. Her back ached. Both knees popped when she stood. 38 years old, and already she felt like her mama had looked at 60. That was what serving plates for 14 hours a day did to a woman. The house was a little 2-bedroom on the edge of town, peeling blue paint, a porch that sagged on the left side. The kind of house folks drove past and didn't notice. But to Delia it was home, and more important, it was Ezra's home. She tiptoed down the hall, past the picture of her father, Sean gone 5 years now, past the old cross her mother had hung by the door before cancer took her in 2003, past the bathroom with the leaky faucet she couldn't afford to fix, and she stopped outside Ezra's door. She always stopped there, just to listen. Some mornings she could hear him crying in his sleep. Some mornings he was yelling at men who weren't there. Men in a country on the other side of the world. Men he had been trying to save when an IED took his leg and most of his mind with it. This morning Ezra was quiet. Delia pressed her palm flat against the door, closed her eyes, whispered the same prayer she whispered every morning. "Lord, give him one good day, just one. That's all I'm asking." Then she opened the door. Ezra was 34 years old. He had been 26 when he came home from Afghanistan. That was 2011, 8 years ago. Sometimes Delia felt like it had been yesterday. Sometimes she felt like Ezra had been this way forever, and she had just forgotten what he used to be. The wheelchair sat by his bed. His prosthetic leg leaned against the wall. He slept with his back to the door. He always slept with his back to the door now. Something a counselor had tried to explain to her once about hypervigilance. Delia didn't understand the word, but she understood her brother. "Ez," she said softly, "Ez, honey, time for your meds." He didn't move. "Ezra?" His shoulder twitched. Then he rolled over. And for a half second before his eyes focused on her, she saw the man he used to pick them, the 20-year-old boy who had kissed her on the forehead before he shipped out, who had told her, "I'll be back, Dee, I promise." Then his eyes cleared, and that boy was gone. The man who came back was the man she knew now. "Morning, Dee," he said. His voice was rough. "Morning, soldier." She set the pill tray on his nightstand. 4 pills. 2 for the pain, 1 for the nerves, 1 for the dreams. "You sleep, okay?" "Same as always." "So no." He almost smiled. Almost. She helped him sit up. He didn't like being helped, but he needed it, and they both pretended otherwise. "I'm working a double today," she said. "I'll be home around 11. "You work too much." "Rent's due." He looked down at his hands, those big scarred hands that used to carry a rifle and now couldn't even button his own shirt on the bad days. "I'm sorry, Dee." "Hey." She sat on the edge of the bed, took his face in her hands, made him look at her. "Don't you ever. Ezra Brennan, you listen to me. You gave your leg for this country. I can give you a few shifts at Roz's. That's how it works. That's how family works." He nodded, but she saw the water in his eyes. She pretended not to. The car had died in August. Delia couldn't afford to fix it. She couldn't afford to replace it. So most mornings she walked. 2 miles from her little blue house to Roz's roadside diner out on Highway 20. October in Iowa was a mean month. The wind came down off the prairie with nothing to slow it. It smelled like cold earth and dying corn. By the time she reached the diner, her ears burned and her fingers were stiff inside her thin gloves. But she walked, every morning, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, because what else was she going to do? Stop, her mama had a saying. Feet that stop walking are feet that start giving up. Delia Brennan had never been one to give up. Not when her mama died, not when her daddy died, not when they rolled Ezra off that C-17 at Dover Air Force Base in a wheelchair with a folded flag in his lap and nothing but screaming in his head. Not now, not ever. She crossed the gravel lot at Roz's at 10 minutes to 6. The neon sign in the window said open in faded red letters. She let herself in the back door. Morning, Roz, the old woman at the grill grunted. Rosalind Kowalski was 79 years old, and she had been running that diner since 1968. She had buried a husband. She had buried a son. She had buried more friends than she cared to count, and she had never missed a morning behind that grill. Not once. You walked again, Roz said. Not a question. Good for the legs. Good for nothing. It's 28 degrees out there. I'm fine. Roz turned around slow. She was a small woman, silver hair in a tight bun, a face like a roadmap of every hard year she had ever lived. Child, she said, one of these mornings I'm going to come pick you up myself, and I don't want to hear one word of argument. You hear me? Delia smiled. Yes, ma'am. Go put your apron on. The ranchers will be here by 6:30. Roz's roadside was the kind of place they don't build anymore. Red vinyl booths patched with silver tape, a long formica counter, a row of stools with chrome rails. The coffee pot was always on. The jukebox in the corner hadn't worked since Reagan was president, but nobody had the heart to throw it out. There was a wall by the register covered in photographs, hundreds of them. Some were yellowed, some were new. Farmers, truckers, regulars, babies that had grown into grandparents at those same booths. Every one of them told a story, and Roz remembered every single one. Delia loved that wall. On bad days when she was counting dimes and trying not to cry, she would look at that wall and remind herself. People come through, people pass through, and every one of them leaves a mark if you let them. That morning she filled the salt shakers, wiped down the booths, brewed the first pot of coffee. By 6:30 the breakfast rush was on. Cattle ranchers in muddy boots, truck drivers hauling grain to Chicago, old widowers who came for the biscuits and gravy in the company. Delia knew most of them by name. Morning, Hank. Morning, darlin'. Usual. She poured coffee and took orders and carried plates and smiled. Her feet ached by 8, her back ached by 10. But she smiled, because a waitress who doesn't smile is a waitress who doesn't eat, and Ezra needed his medication. It was just after 2 in the afternoon when she heard it. At first she thought it was a storm rolling in off the prairie, that low rolling rumble you hear before the sky opens up. But the sky outside was blue. Roz looked up from the grill, set her spatula down, walked slow to the window. Lord have mercy, the old woman said. Delia came up beside her, wiped her hands on her apron. Out on Highway 20, coming from the west, was a line of motorcycles, maybe 30 of them, big chrome Harleys, most of them, riding 2 by 2 like soldiers in a parade. The sound was like nothing Delia had ever heard, deep, ancient, a sound you felt in your chest before you heard it in your ears. And leading them out front was a single rider on an old black shovelhead, gray beard, gray hair pulled back under a skull cap. Something in the way he sat on that bike made every man behind him look like he knew exactly where he was going. Roz, Delia said, are those Hell's Angels? Here, Roz didn't answer for a long moment. She just watched them through the window, watched the lead rider signal, watched the whole column pull slow into the gravel lot like water filling a bathtub. Delia, Roz finally said, I want you to listen to me. Yes, ma'am. You don't say nothing smart. You don't stare. You pour coffee, take orders, and you treat those men like you'd treat anyone else. You understand me? Yes, ma'am. Most of them are cleaner than the politicians in Des Moines, but there's always a new boy or two who thinks the patch makes him God Almighty. And those ones? Roz shook her head. Those ones we watch. Delia nodded. Her stomach had gone tight. She picked up the coffee pot. She told herself her hand wasn't shaking. It was. The lead rider came in first. He was tall, not thick the way some older men get thick, but wide through the shoulders like he had been built for work. His beard was more white than gray. His eyes were the color of a lake in winter, pale blue and quiet. He took off his skull cap, held it in both hands, and he nodded just once at Roz behind the counter. "Ma'am, 30 of us if you've got the room." His voice was low, slow, the kind of voice that didn't need to raise itself to be heard. "We've got the room," Roz said, "much obliged." He turned and waved his men in. They came one by one, most of them old, 60s, 70s, a few in their 50s, beards, leather, patches from all over. Delia caught names as they passed: Doc, Old Bill, Whiskey, Hammer. They were polite, every one of them, taking off their hats, nodding at her, saying ma'am when she set down their water. And then there was the young one. He couldn't have been more than 25. He wore his cut like he was proud of it. His patches were new, his boots were new. Everything about him said, "I'm here, and I want you to know it." The older bikers called him Tucker, and Delia noticed something. They didn't look at him the way they looked at each other. They looked at him the way a tired father looks at a son he's about to have to correct. The big man with the gray beard, the one who had come in first, took a booth by the window. He sat with his back to the wall. Delia noticed that too. Every man in that room sat with his back to a wall if he could manage it. Tucker plopped down at the counter, spun the stool, snapped his fingers at her. "Coffee, sweetheart, black." Delia's jaw set, but she said nothing. She brought the coffee. He took a sip, made a face. "This fresh, brewed an hour ago. Tastes like it's been brewed a week." She said nothing. She picked up the pot and walked away. She poured for the other men. The big one by the window, the one the others called Preacher, looked up at her when she refilled his cup. "Thank you, ma'am." Just that. "Thank you, ma'am." But something in the way he said it made her throat close up. She couldn't say why. Maybe because it had been a long time since a stranger had said something to her that wasn't in order. Maybe because his eyes were so tired. Tired the way Ezra's eyes were tired. The eyes of a man who had seen things he couldn't put down. She nodded, moved on. It happened 20 minutes later. Tucker stood up to go to the bathroom. He turned too fast. His elbow caught his coffee cup. The whole thing went over the counter, across the floor, and splattered up the wall. Delia was 10 feet away. She grabbed a rag, came over fast, started wiping. "Let me get this cleaned up, sir." "Sweetheart, what kind of counter are you running here?" She looked up. "Sir, I can't set a cup down without it falling over." "You ever heard of a napkin?" She blinked. The cup had been on a napkin. "Sir, I'll get you a fresh one." "You sure will, and this one better not taste like swamp water." She bit the inside of her cheek, got up, got him fresh coffee. She set it down, turned to walk away. "Hey," she stopped. "I said I want it hot." "That's fresh from the pot, sir." "Then get a new pot on, and the next time you don't let a paying customer sit here with garbage coffee." Something in Delia's chest started to heat up. She had served a lot of rude customers in 14 years. Drunks, cheapskates, men who grabbed her arm, men who called her names. She had swallowed all of it, because that was the job, because rent was due, because Ezra needed his pills. But today was a bad day. Today she had walked 2 miles in 28-degree wind. Today she had counted $83 in a coffee can. Today her brother had cried in his sleep. And this boy was not going to pile one more pound on her back. She put the pot down slow. She turned around. "Young man," she said. Her voice was steady, quiet. The whole diner had gone quiet with it. Tucker looked up, smirked. "What?" "I said, young man, I'm going to say something and I'd like you to hear me." "Lady, just get me." "You are going to be quiet now." Her hand was shaking. She held the pot up so it wouldn't show. "I have been on my feet since 5:30 this morning. I walked 2 miles to get here. I will walk 2 miles home. I am 38 years old and I have a brother at home who gave a leg for this country, and I am the only family he has left. I am doing the best I can." Tucker's smirk was fading. "Now," she said, "you came in here. You sat at my counter. You spilled your own coffee. And you've been rude to me since the minute your boots hit the floor. I have not said one word back to you, because my mama taught me to be kind. But my mama also taught me there's a line." She stepped forward, and you just crossed it. The whole diner was frozen. "So here is what you are going to do. You are going to close your mouth. You are going to sit there, and you are going to drink your coffee in silence. Because if you shout at me again, mister, you are done in this diner. I don't care how many men you brought with you. I don't care what patch you're wearing. I don't care if you knew my grandfather. You will leave this diner and you will not come back." She set the pot down on the counter. "Do I make myself clear?" Tucker's face went red. He opened his mouth. Delia could see a dozen ugly words forming there. She braced for it. And then from the booth by the window, a quiet voice said, Tucker. Just the name. That was all. Tucker's mouth closed. Wade Caldwell set his coffee cup down. He wiped his mouth with a paper napkin, folded the napkin, laid it on the table, and he stood up. He was taller than he had looked sitting down. He walked slow. Every man in that diner watched him walk. Every man at every table. Every man at the counter. Even the cook behind the grill. He walked right past Tucker without looking at him. He stopped in front of Delia. And Wade Caldwell, 68 years old, president of the Midwest, chapter of the Hells Angels, took off his skull cap, held it against his chest with both hands, and bowed his head. Ma'am, he said. His voice was so quiet Delia had to lean in. Ma'am, I want to apologize on behalf of my club. My mama raised me to take my hat off to a working woman. She raised me to thank her for her work. And she raised me to understand that if a man can't control his mouth in a ladies' diner, he don't deserve to be in one. He raised his head. Those lake water eyes looked straight into hers. This boy here forgot what his mama taught him. I'll remind him outside. That is a promise. He turned his head slow, looked at Tucker. Wait for me in the lot, son. Tucker swallowed. Preacher, I didn't. In the lot. Tucker got up. He didn't look at Delia. He didn't look at anyone. He walked out. Wade turned back to Delia. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a worn leather wallet, took out $200 bills, laid them gently on the counter. For the trouble, ma'am, and the coffee, and the cleanup. Sir, the coffee is $3.50. I know what the coffee costs, ma'am. I can't. You can, and you will, because I said so, and because my mama would haunt me from the grave if I walked out of here without making this right. She stared at him. He put his skull cap back on, gave her one slow nod. You have a good evening, Miss Brennan, Delia Brennan. Miss Brennan, Wade Caldwell. Pleased to meet you. He turned and walked out. Wade came out of the diner into the cold afternoon. His men followed him out one by one. Some of them clapped his shoulder. Some of them said nothing. Tucker was waiting by the bikes, pale as milk. Wade walked up to him. Boy, preacher, you will go back inside. You will apologize to that woman. You will tip her $50. You will do it with your hat in your hand. And then you will come out here and you will sit on your bike and you will think about what it means to wear the patch you're wearing. Yes, sir. And Tucker. Yes, sir. If I ever hear you raise your voice to a working woman again, you will turn in your cut. You hear me? You will turn it in and you will ride away from this club and you will not look back. Yes, sir. Tucker went back inside. Wade stood by his bike. He lit a cigarette. His hand was steady, but his eyes were somewhere else. Because when he had stood up in that diner, when he had walked across that floor, he had looked through the side window of the back door, and there on the little covered porch behind the diner, waiting for his sister to get off shift, sitting in a wheelchair, with a Marine Corps jacket pulled tight around him, was a young man who looked exactly like Danny Calloway. Wade had not thought about Danny Calloway in a long time. You couldn't carry a memory like that around and keep walking. Calloway had been 22 years old in February of 1991. Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Iowa boy, red hair, freckles. A laugh like a donkey that made the whole platoon crack up even when they were cold and scared and lost in the desert. Wade had been 40, a gunnery sergeant. Too old to be there, some said. But there he was, Operation Desert Storm. 100 hours of ground war that had been waiting for them for 6 months in the sand. Calloway had been Wade's man, and Calloway had not come home. There had been an ambush near Medina Ridge. Wade had pulled 3 of his boys out. He had gone back for the 4th, but by the time he got to Calloway, it was too late. He had held that boy's head in his lap while the medevac came. Calloway had looked up at him and said, Sergeant, tell my sister I tried. Wade had promised. He had kept the promise. He had driven down to Cedar Rapids 3 weeks after they came home. He had knocked on Mrs. Calloway's door. He had told the family. He had cried with Calloway's sister on the front porch. And then he had gone home to Iowa City. And he had tried to be a preacher again, and he had failed. Because a man who has held a 22-year-old boy's head in his lap while he died can't stand in a pulpit and talk about a loving God. Not for a long time. Maybe not ever. That had been 1991. That had been 28 years ago. And that young man in the wheelchair on the porch of Roz's roadside diner had Danny Calloway's face. Wade rode at the back of the column on the way into Ashfield. He usually rode point, But that afternoon he needed to think, and a man thinks better at the back. They pulled into the Starlight Motel, 30 rooms, 6 of them booked for the Angels, the rest empty this time of year. Doc Hollister walked up to him while he was parking. Doc was 64, wire-thin, gray goatee. He had been a Navy corpsman in the first Gulf War and an ER nurse for 20 years after that. He had patched Wade up more times than either of them could count. Preacher Doc said, "You all right?" "I'm all right." "You don't look all right." Wade looked at him. "Doc." "Yeah, I saw a ghost in that diner." Doc didn't say anything. He just waited. There was a boy in a wheelchair on the back porch, Marine Corps jacket. He looked like Calloway. Doc's face softened. "Preacher, I know. 30 years. I know, Doc. I know what I know, and I know what I saw." Doc put a hand on Wade's shoulder, squeezed once. "You want me to find out who he is?" Wade thought about it. "No," he said. "I'll find out myself. Tomorrow, I'll go back to the diner." "We're riding out day after tomorrow." "I know." Doc studied him a moment. "You need anything, preacher, you tell me." "I will." Doc walked off. Wade stood there in the motel parking lot. The sun was going down behind the grain elevator across the highway. The sky was the color of rust. He reached into the inside pocket of his cut, pulled out a small wooden cross. It fit in his palm. The wood was dark from 40 years of being held. Danny Caldwell, his son, 4 years old, had carved that cross with his granddaddy's pocket knife a week before he drowned. Wade had carried it every day since. He looked at the cross. He closed his hand around it. He looked up at the rust-colored squamous, he said quietly, "If you're still there, if you're still listening to an old sinner. I saw something today. I don't know what it was. But if you put me here for a reason." He stopped. He couldn't finish the prayer. He hadn't finished a prayer in 30 years. Back at the diner, the Angels were gone. Delia was wiping down the counter. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking even now. She kept seeing it, that big man taking off his cap, bowing his head. My mama raised me to thank her for her work. Tucker had come back in. He had apologized. He had left $50 on the counter and had not met her eyes. She had the $200 from Wade, the $50 from Tucker, and the $3.50 ticket from the coffee. $246.50, more than she usually made in tips for a whole week. Roz came out of the back. She poured herself a cup of coffee. She sat down on a stool and looked at Delia. "You all right, child?" "I don't know, Roz. My knees are still shaking." "Come sit." Delia came around the counter and sat next to the old woman. "Roz, who was he, the big one?" "Wade Caldwell." "You know him." "I know of him. Everybody around here my age knows of him." Delia waited. Roz took a long sip of her coffee. 30 years ago, maybe a little more, Wade Caldwell was the pastor at First Baptist over in Iowa City. People said he was the best preacher west of the Mississippi. Voice like a cello. Knew his scripture. Knew his people. Folks drove an hour on Sunday mornings just to hear him. "What happened?" Roz stared into her coffee. "He had a little boy, 4 years old, named Daniel. Danny. The kind of boy who made the whole church smile when he toddled down the aisle." Delia felt her stomach drop. "There was an accident. The details don't matter. Wade was there. Wade lived. Danny didn't." Delia closed her eyes. "Wade's wife, Mary, she tried to hold on. Tried to help him, but Wade started drinking. Stopped preaching. They divorced 2 years after Danny died. She died of cancer about 10 years after that. Alone. And he joined the Angels, yes. A lot of folks thought he'd lost his mind. I never thought that. I think he lost his God. And you can't stand in a pulpit with nothing in your chest, child. So he went looking, and he found men who were as broken as he was, and they were broken together." Delia stared at the floor. "Roz, what he said to me today. I heard. It didn't sound like a man who lost his God." Roz smiled a slow smile, the kind of smile that came from living a long time and watching a lot of things come back around. "Child," she said, "God doesn't always leave. Sometimes we just stop listening, and sometimes on some cold October evening, somebody says something we didn't expect and we start listening again." She patted Delia's hand. "You said something he needed to hear today. I don't know what it was, but I saw his face when you said it. I was scared to death, Roz. I know you were. I almost didn't say anything." "I know." The old woman squeezed her hand. "But you did. And sometimes that's the whole difference in a life, child. One sentence, said with your hand shaking." The sun was all the way down by the time Delia left the diner. She had $246 in her pocket, more than she had dreamed of when she had woken up that morning. Enough for rent almost. enough for Ezra's pills for a month. She walked slow in the dark. The wind had died, the stars were out. A coyote called somewhere out past the grain elevator, and another one answered him. She thought about the big man with the lake water eyes. She thought about what Roz had said. One sentence, said with your hands shaking. She thought about Ezra waiting at home, probably in his chair by the window watching the road for her headlights. Except there were no headlights anymore, just her walking. She turned onto her street, and she stopped. The porch light at her house was on. That was normal. Ezra always left it on for her. But the front door was open, just a crack, just enough that she could see a line of yellow light. Delia's stomach dropped to her shoes. She started to run. She hit the porch steps at full speed. She burst through the door. Ezra. And there, sitting in her living room on her mama's old floral couch with his boots on her coffee table and a beer from her fridge in his hand, was a man she had not seen in 11 years. Donnie Ray Brennan, her father's second cousin. 45 years of sharp-faced, eyes like wet stones, wearing a leather jacket and a smile that did not reach anywhere near his eyes. Ezra was in his chair by the window. His hands were gripping the armrest. His face was white. "Dee, Donnie Ray said. Sit down, cousin. We got some family business to discuss." Delia did not sit down. "Get out of my house." Donnie Ray smiled wider. "See, that's the thing, cousin. This ain't really your house no more. Because your daddy, God rest him, your daddy owed me some money before he passed. And 5 years of interest is a lot of interest. My daddy didn't owe you anything. $40,000, Dee, plus what he borrowed for your mama's funeral. And the hospital bills before that, 40 grand. I've got paperwork." "You're lying." Donnie Ray took a long pull of her beer. "I'm gonna give you 7 days, cousin. 7 days to come up with $40,000. And if I don't have that money in my hand by sundown a week from today..." He looked over at Ezra. Ezra was shaking. Delia could see him shaking. "Something's gonna happen to that crippled brother of yours. Something real bad. And nobody in this town is gonna do a thing about it. Because this is Brennan business. Family business. You understand me, Dee?" Delia's hand was on the door. She was gonna scream. She was going to throw him out. She was gonna... Donnie Ray stood up, set the beer down, walked past her slow. At the door he stopped. 7 days, cousin. He stepped out onto the porch. He was gone. She locked every door. She checked every window. She pulled the curtains. She sat on the floor next to Ezra's chair. He was crying quiet the way he cried when the dreams got bad. She held his hand. She did not cry. She could not afford to cry. Across town, in a cheap motel room with a Bible on the nightstand that had not been opened in 30 years, Wade Caldwell got down on his knees beside the bed. He folded his hands. He did not know what he was going to say. He opened his mouth. And for the first time in 3 decades, Wade Caldwell began to pray. Delia did not sleep that night. She sat on the floor by Ezra's chair until his breathing evened out. Then she helped him to bed. Then she walked through the house. Kitchen, hallway, back bedroom. She locked every lock twice. She slid a kitchen chair under the front doorknob. Then she sat at the kitchen table in the dark. The coffee can was on the counter. $246.50 inside on top of the $83 she already had. $329.50. She needed $40,000. She laughed once, a dry, hard sound in the dark kitchen. Then she put her face in her hands. She did not cry. Crying was a luxury. Crying took time and took strength, and she had neither to spare. At 4:45, the alarm went off in her bedroom. She was already up. She got dressed. She checked on Ezra. She looked out every window before she opened the front door. The porch was empty. She walked to work. Wade Caldwell walked into the diner at 7:30 that morning. He was not wearing his leather cut. He wore a brown flannel shirt, jeans that had seen real work, boots with honest scuffs. He looked like any farmer who had come in off the fields for breakfast, except for his eyes. Delia saw him come in. Her hand tightened on the coffee pot. "Morning, ma'am," he said. "Morning, Mr. Caldwell." "Wade'll do, if you don't mind." "Wade, then. Sit anywhere you like." He took the booth by the window. The same one as yesterday. She brought him coffee. She set it down without a word. He wrapped both hands around the mug like a man warming himself. "Ma'am," he said, "I'd like the number 2, eggs over easy, bacon crisp, wheat toast." "Yes, sir." She started to turn. "And ma'am," she stopped. "I've got no agenda this morning. I ate here yesterday. Food was good, coffee was better, just wanted to come back." She studied him. He was looking at his coffee, not at her, a man who knew when to take up space and when not to. All right, she said. She walked away. An hour later, Wade was still there. The breakfast rush had come and gone. A few old ranchers lingered at the counter. Wade sat by the window with his empty plate pushed to the side, and in front of him, open, was a book. It was a Bible, a small one, black leather cover cracked along the spine, gold lettering worn off the front, the kind of Bible a man had owned for a very long time. Delia came by to refill his coffee. She saw the book. You read scripture, Wade. I read it. Every morning. He looked up. Not for a long time, ma'am, but I started again last night. She did not know what to say to that. She poured his coffee. She walked away. Roz was at the register. She watched Delia pass. She said nothing, but her eyes went to the booth by the window and stayed there for a long moment. Ezra Brennan had not come to the diner in 4 months. He did not like crowds. He did not like unfamiliar men. He did not like the look on people's faces when they saw the wheelchair and the empty pant leg. But that afternoon he came. He rolled up to the back door at 2:30. His hands were cold on the wheels. He wore his Marine Corps jacket, the one with the Lance Corporal stripes, the one he had worn home from Walter Reed 8 years ago. He had come because Delia had been white as a sheet that morning when she left. And because when his sister looked like that, Ezra knew something was wrong. And a brother does not sit in a house when something is wrong with his sister. Even if the brother had one leg and shaky hands and could not always remember what day it was. He knocked on the back door. Roz opened it. Ezra, Miss Roz, come in out of the cold. She held the door. He rolled in. The kitchen was warm and smelled like bacon. Roz pointed him toward the front. Your sister's out there. Take a booth. I'll send her over. He rolled through the kitchen and out into the dining room. 3 old men at the counter turned to look. He knew them. They nodded. He nodded back. Good men. Farmers. And in the booth by the window facing him was a stranger. A big man, gray beard, flannel shirt, eyes like a lake. Their eyes met across the room. And Wade Caldwell's hand froze on his coffee cup. Ezra rolled to a booth 2 down from Wade. He did not know why the man was staring at him. He did not like it. He did not like being stared at. He set his brake. He folded his hands on the table. He waited for his sister. Wade Caldwell was not staring exactly. He was seeing. He was seeing February of 1991. He was seeing a red-haired boy laughing at a joke in a briefing room in Saudi Arabia. He was seeing the same boy coughing blood into the sand at Medina Ridge. He was seeing the way that boy's jaw had set when he said, Sergeant, tell my sister. And now in Iowa, in a diner on Highway 20, that boy's face was sitting 2 booths down. It was not Danny Calloway. Ezra was darker-haired. The jaw was different. The eyes were different. But the shape of him, the set of his shoulders, the way he held his chin up, even though everything about him said he was tired. Wade closed his Bible slow. He stood up. He walked over to Ezra's booth. Son? Ezra looked up. Mind if I sit a minute? Ezra said nothing. He was sizing the man up. Wade could see the Marine in him doing that. Threat assessment, range, exits. I'm a friend, Wade said. Or I'd like to be. I saw the jacket. Ezra looked down at his own chest, the eagle globe and anchor on his pocket, then back up. You a Marine? Ezra asked. I was. When 81 to 92, gunny. Ezra's eyes changed just a little. Gulf Dayin, first one. Where everywhere. Medina Ridge mostly at the end. Ezra nodded slow. Kandahar, he said, 2011. I know. Ezra looked at him sharp. How do you know? Wade did not answer. He slid into the booth across from Ezra. May I? You already did. Wade almost smiled. Yeah, I did. They sat for a moment without talking. Delia came out of the kitchen with a tray. She saw her brother. She saw Wade across from him. Her step faltered. Roz caught her elbow. Let him sit, child. Roz, let him sit. 2 Marines at a table. You don't get in the middle of that. Delia looked at the booth. Ezra was looking at his hands. Wade was looking out the window. Neither one of them was saying anything, but they were sitting together, and something about the way they were sitting together made Delia's eyes water. She went back to the kitchen. Wade spoke first. Son, what happened to your leg? Ezra was quiet a long time. I don't remember it. How much don't you remember? They tell me I was on a patrol. They tell me there was an IED. They tell me I pulled 3 guys out before I passed out from blood loss. They tell me one of them's a doctor now, has kids. You remember any of that? No, sir. Nothing. I remember going out that morning. I remember the sun coming up. I remember one of the guys laughing about something. And then I remember waking up in Germany with no leg. Wade nodded. Son, that's a gift. A gift. God gave you the gift of not remembering. Some of us, we remember everything. Every face, every sound, every smell. I had a boy in my platoon, a kid named Calloway, 22, Iowa boy like you. I held his head while he died. Ezra's eyes flickered up. I remember the color of his eyes, Wade said. I remember what he had for breakfast with them that morning. I remember the smell of the sand when the blood soaked in. I remember the exact words he said before he was gone. Wade paused. 28 years ago this winter, and I remember like it was last night. Ezra swallowed. What did he say? He said, tell my sister. Tell my sister I tried. Ezra closed his eyes. Son, listen to me. Some of us remember and some of us don't. But the ones who don't, they aren't less brave. They aren't less Marine. Their sacrifice isn't less. You hear me? Ezra's shoulders were shaking. You hear me, Corporal? Ezra nodded. He could not speak. Breathe, son. I can't. You can. Breathe with me. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. That's it. That's the way. Ezra breathed. In. Hold. Out. And in that booth by the window in a little diner in Iowa with a one-legged Marine crying quiet and an old biker holding his hand across the table, something began to change that neither of them could have put a name to. Later, after Ezra had rolled home and Delia had gone back to work, Roz sat down across from Wade with 2 fresh cups of coffee. Preacher, ma'am, I want to tell you something, and I want you to listen and not interrupt. You promise, I promise, Victor. Roz set her cup down, folded her hands. Sean Brennan, Delia's father, he did not die of a heart attack. Wade was still. That is what the paper said. That is what the death certificate says. That is what Delia believes. And for 5 years I have let her believe it, because the truth is a thing I have been afraid to say out loud. What happened to him, Roz? He was killed. He was beaten to death in his own truck on a dirt road outside town. They found him the next morning, face down behind the wheel. Sheriff ruled it a heart attack because the sheriff at the time, it is the sheriff now, and because the man who killed Sean was the man who owns the sheriff. Wade's jaw set. Donnie Ray Brennan. Roz's eyes widened. You know that name. I heard it for the first time this morning. Delia came in shaking. She tried to hide it. She couldn't. I asked Doc to do some asking around last night. He called me an hour ago. Roz nodded slow. Then you know Donnie Ray runs the meth through this part of the county. You know he has his fingers in Deputy Weathers' pocket up to the wrist. And you probably know that Sean Brennan, before he died, figured out something about Donnie Ray that Donnie Ray could not let live. What did he figure out? Roz looked around the diner. The last customer was at the counter paying his check. She lowered her voice. 6 years ago, there was a girl in Cedar Rapids, a working girl. She went missing. Her body was found in a ditch outside Ashfield. Sheriff said it was an overdose. Her mother said she had never used a drug in her life. The case was closed inside of 3 weeks. And Sean knew that girl. Sean had driven her home once. Sean saw Donnie Ray's truck at the place she was last seen alive. And Sean wrote it down. In a journal, with dates, with names, with everything. Wade set his coffee down. Where is that journal? In Delia's house? In Sean's old Bible in the top drawer of his dresser. Delia has never opened it. She has never read it. She doesn't know it's there. Wade looked at her. Why are you telling me this, Roz? Because that girl in the booth yesterday, the one who told your boy he was done in this diner, is the bravest person I know. And I have been a coward for 5 years, and I am too old to carry it one more day. And you, Wade Caldwell, are the only man I know who might be able to do something about it without getting everyone killed. Wade was quiet a long moment. Roz, yes. Is Donnie Ray after her now? He was at her house last night. I don't know what he wanted, but when she came in this morning, her hands were shaking and her eyes were 10 miles away. He was there, preacher. I would bet my life on it. Wade stood up. Finish your coffee, Roz. I'll be back tonight. Where are you going? To talk to Doc and to start counting bullets. At the Starlight Motel, Doc Hollister listened without interrupting. He sat on the edge of the bed in Wade's room. Wade paced. Wade did not often pace. Doc watched him pace and said nothing. When Wade was finished, Doc rubbed his goatee. Preacher. Yeah. You want to tell me why we're about to get into a shooting war with a meth dealer over a waitress and her brother? Wade stopped pacing. The boy in the wheelchair. The one who looks like Calloway. Yeah, preacher, it isn't Calloway. I know it isn't Calloway. He's been gone 28 years. I know how long he's been gone, Doc. Doc sighed. He stood up. Preacher, I've been riding with you for 31 years. I've followed you into places that would have scared the devil himself. I have never once asked why. I know. I'm not asking why now. I'm asking, are you sure? Wade looked at him. Doc, last night I got on my knees for the first time since I quit the pulpit. And I prayed. I don't know if anybody was listening, but I prayed. And this morning I walked into that diner, and there's a Marine corporal in a wheelchair. Looks like a boy I held dying in the sand. And there's a woman running herself into the ground to keep him alive. And there's a man with a badge in his pocket and a meth dealer in his ear, and they are coming for that house. He stopped. Doc, I have spent 40 years being angry at God. 40 years. And last night I got on my knees, and this morning God dropped this on my porch. I am not turning my back on it. Doc looked at him a long time. Then he nodded. All right, preacher. All right. I'll get the boys together. We're here for 3 more nights anyway for the memorial. I'll tell them we're staying longer. Thank you, Doc. Don't thank me. Tell me what you want. I want a perimeter. I want the diner watched. I want her house watched. I want somebody on Deputy Weathers. And I want to know everything there is to know about Donnie Ray Brennan by sundown tomorrow. Done. Doc walked to the door. He stopped. Preacher. Yeah. When you prayed last night, what did you say? Wade was quiet. I said, Lord, if you're still there, give me one good thing to do before I'm done. Doc nodded. Sounds like he heard you. He walked out. It was Wednesday when Delia told Roz everything. She had held it 2 days. She had come to work. She had smiled. She had poured coffee. She had counted out $1,500 in cash that her regulars had started slipping her in strange amounts. 20 here, 50 there. One old rancher handed her $100 bill and said, Darlin', I had a good week at the auction. She knew something was happening. She did not know what. But by Wednesday afternoon, the fear in her chest had grown too big to hold. She was in the back room with Roz, stacking clean coffee cups. Roz. My cousin came to my house Monday night. Roz stopped moving. Donnie Ray. Yes. What did he want? He said my daddy owed him $40,000. He said I have 7 days to pay it. He said if I don't, her voice broke. He said he would hurt Ezra. Roz set the cup down. She walked around the counter. She took Delia's face in her small, hard hands. She looked at her a long moment. Child, she said, you are going to listen to me now. You are going to breathe. And then you are going to go out the back door. And you are going to stand on the porch and wait. And help is coming. Do you hear me? Help is already here. Roz, I can't. You did your part, child. You did your part 2 days ago when you stood up in my diner. Now other people are going to do theirs. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. Now go. Delia went out the back door. She stood on the porch in the cold. She did not know what she was waiting for. 20 minutes later, Wade Caldwell's shovelhead pulled into the gravel lot. He walked up to her slow. He did not crowd her. Ma'am, he said. Wade, I hear you had a visitor Monday night. She swallowed. Who told you? Roz, just now, before I rode over here, but I knew before that. I've known since yesterday. How? Ma'am, there are about 30 men staying at the Starlight Motel who work for free when I ask them to. They have been watching your house since Tuesday morning. There is a man in a truck across the street from your house right now. There is another man parked in the church lot behind your alley. There is a third man who follows Donnie Ray everywhere he goes. Donnie Ray does not know it. He will not know it until it is too late. Delia stared at him. Why are you doing this? Because your brother has the face of a boy I loved. Because your mother taught you to stand up. Because my mother taught me to stand up for women who stand up. And because I prayed Monday night for the first time in 30 years, and Tuesday morning God put you in front of me. I do not turn away from that, ma'am. Not this time. She did not know what to say. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a worn leather Bible, pressed it into her hands. This was my wife's. I gave it to her when we got married in 1972. I took it back when she passed. I have carried it for a lot of years. I'd like you to keep it for a few days. You read scripture, ma'am. I used to. Start again. She held the Bible to her chest. Wade, I have to tell you something. I don't have $40,000. I don't have 400. I don't know what he wants from me. I don't know what he's going to do. Wade looked at her. Ma'am, listen to me now. Listen carefully. He does not want $40,000. He never wanted $40,000. He wants something else. And I think I know what it is. And I am going to find out for certain tonight. And tomorrow I am going to come to your house and I am going to tell you the truth. And you are going to be angry at me for a while. And then we are going to decide together what to do. Is that a deal? She nodded. She could not speak. He tipped his skull cap. Good evening, ma'am. He walked back to his bike. She stood on the porch with the Bible pressed to her chest long after the sound of his engine had faded. Deputy Carl Weathers was 47 years old. He had been a deputy in Ashfield County for 22 years. He had a wife he loved, 2 boys in high school, a mortgage and a boat, and a good dog named Hank. He had never taken a dollar in his life until 3 years ago. 3 years ago, his oldest boy had wrecked a car while drunk and put a girl in a wheelchair. The family had not wanted to press charges if the medical bills were paid. The bills were $290,000. Carl Weathers did not have $290,000. Donnie Ray Brennan did. And that was how Carl Weathers had become the kind of man he had spent his whole life arresting. He had not slept well in 3 years. He was sitting in his cruiser outside the Quick Stop Wednesday night when a shadow came up alongside his driver's window. He reached for his sidearm, then he saw who it was. Wade Caldwell, skull cap, flannel shirt, eyes like lake water. Wade tapped on the glass. Carl rolled the window down. Preacher, deputy. They looked at each other a moment. You know why I'm here, Wade said. I can guess. Step out of the car, deputy. Carl stepped out. Wade leaned against the cruiser, crossed his arms. Carl, I know about the boy. I know about the girl in the chair. I know about the 300 grand. I know about every dollar of Donnie Ray's money in your pocket going back 32 months. And I know about the pictures of your boys that Donnie Ray showed you 6 months ago to remind you who holds your leash. Carl's face went white. How could you possibly? Son, I have a friend with the FBI who I served with in '91. I made a phone call Tuesday morning. By Tuesday night, I had the whole file. Preacher, please, my boys. Carl, listen to me. I am not here to hurt you. I am here to give you a choice. Carl's hands were shaking. What choice? Donnie Ray Brennan killed Sean Brennan 5 years ago. Donnie Ray killed a woman named Lisa Matthews 6 years ago. Donnie Ray has plans by sundown this Monday to kill Delia Brennan and her brother. And the only reason Donnie Ray has been able to do any of this is because you have looked the other way. Carl was crying. He was not ashamed of it. I didn't know about Sean. I swear to God, preacher. I didn't know. I believe you. That's why we're talking. Wade straightened up. Carl, here's your choice. You can keep looking the other way. And when this is done, and it will be done by Monday night, one way or another, I will make sure every piece of paper your friend in the FBI has on you gets delivered to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Des Moines. Your boys will know what their father was. Your wife will know. Your neighbors will know. Or you help me. You wear a wire. You write a statement. You get Donnie Ray on tape admitting what he did to Sean and what he's planning for Delia. And when the time comes, you stand on the right side of the line. And when it's all over, my friend at the Bureau will go to the U.S. Attorney with a different kind of paperwork. A cooperator's file, reduced charges, no prison for you if we play it right, a chance to look your boys in the eye again. Preacher, you don't know what he'll do to my family if he finds out. Carl, he is going to do it anyway. He is getting sloppy. He is killing people. And when men like him go down, they take everyone they can with them. Your boys are already in his pocket whether you see it or not. This is the way out. This is the only way out. Carl leaned against the cruiser. He wiped his face. What do you need me to do? Meet me tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Roz is after close. Bring everything you know. Bring your badge. Bring your conscience. I'll be there. I know you will, son. Wade clapped him on the shoulder once, walked to his bike, rode off. Carl Weathers stood in the parking lot of the Quick Stop and cried the kind of tears he had not cried since he was a boy. Thursday afternoon, Wade came to Delia's house. Ezra was at the kitchen table. He had his prosthetic on. He had shaved. He looked for the first time in a long time like a man and not a ghost. Delia opened the door. She had Mary Caldwell's Bible on the counter. She had been reading from Psalms. Wade. Ma'am, may I come in? She nodded. He stepped inside. He took off his cap. He stood in the middle of her small living room with his hands folded over his cap like a man at a funeral. I have things to tell you, both of you. Ezra, I'd like you here for this. Ezra rolled in. He set the brake. Wade sat down on the edge of the floral couch, the same couch Donnie Ray had sat on Monday night. Wade's back was very straight. Ma'am, Corporal, the first thing I am going to tell you is the hardest thing. Miss Brennan, your father did not die of a heart attack. He was murdered by Donnie Ray 5 years ago. for what your father had learned about a crime Donnie Ray had committed the year before. Delia sat down, hard, on the arm of the couch. What crime? Donnie Ray killed a young woman 6 years ago, a working girl from Cedar Rapids named Lisa Matthews. Your father figured it out. Your father wrote it down in a journal, in his Bible, upstairs, in his old dresser, top drawer. Delia was white. I've never opened that Bible. I know you haven't, Roz told me. Why is he coming after us now? Because he thinks you have the journal, or he thinks you know what's in it. He's been watching you for 5 years, Miss Brennan, and last month your father's old bank sent you a letter about a safe deposit box. That letter spooked him. He thinks your father left something behind. He thinks it's coming for him. Delia put her face in her hands. What does he want, really? What does he want from me? He wants you both dead and the house burned, so nothing is ever found. He does not want $40,000. He never did. He wanted you scared so you would run, so you would make a mistake, so he could get you somewhere quiet. That is what his 7 days are. Ezra spoke for the first time. Dee, go get it. She looked up. Go get the Bible, Dee. She stood up. She went up the stairs. She opened the top drawer of her father's old dresser for the first time in 5 years. Her father's Bible was there. Just as Wade had said, she brought it down. She set it on the coffee table. She opened it. Folded inside the front cover, wrapped in a rubber band, were 22 sheets of yellow legal pad paper. Handwritten, dated, signed by Sean Brennan. Names, times, places. A full account of what he had seen, what he had heard, what he had followed up on. Every bit of it. Delia read 3 lines and started to cry. Wade did not stop her. Some tears a person has to cry for themselves. When she was able to talk again, she read the last page aloud. If anyone ever finds this, and I am not here, her father had written, please know I wrote this down because I was not brave enough to take it to the police while I was alive. The police in this county belong to him. I do not know who to trust, but my Delia is brave. My Delia is braver than her old father. And if she finds this, she will know what to do. And Delia, baby, if you are reading this, I love you. I love your brother. Take care of each other. And know that your old man died trying to leave this world a little cleaner than he found it. Daddy. Delia folded the pages. She set them on the Bible. She closed her eyes. Wade, ma'am, what do we do? Miss Brennan, tomorrow night Carl Weathers is coming to Roz's with a written statement about everything he knows. Doc has a friend at the Bureau from already standing by, and Donnie Ray's 7 days run out Monday at sundown. We are going to let him come. We are going to be ready. You are going to be safe. Your brother is going to be safe. And when this is done, Donnie Ray Brennan is going to prison for the rest of his life for what he did to your father and that girl in Cedar Rapids. Ezra said, quiet, I want to be there. Wade turned to him. Son, don't son me gunny. I am a Marine. This is my family. I want to be there. I will be there. You can put me in a corner. You can put me behind a counter. But I will be there. Wade looked at him a long moment, and then he nodded. Corporal, you will be there. Doc Hollister came by the house Thursday night. He had his medic bag. He had a notebook. He had the kind eyes of a man who had patched up boys younger than Ezra in 3 different deserts. Marine, Corpsman. They shook hands. Doc sat down at the kitchen table. He spread a pharmacy bag, 4 prescription bottles. Corporal, I took the liberty of pulling up your VA chart. I hope you will forgive me. How did you pull up my chart? Son, I have been doing this for 40 years. You do not want to know how. You want to know what I learned. All right. You are on 3 medications that are fighting each other. You are on a 4th medication at twice the dose you should be at. Your sleep is bad because 2 of these pills are keeping you awake at 3 in the morning, and 1 of them is keeping you from dreaming at all, which is worse. I am not going to tell you to change anything without talking to your doctor. But tomorrow morning, I'm going to drive you to my friend in Cedar Rapids, who runs the Veterans Clinic there. He will spend 2 hours with you. He will listen. He will fix what I cannot fix from a notebook. Is that a deal? Ezra stared at him. Why are you doing this? Doc smiled a small smile. Because you are a Marine's son, and because once upon a time, a long time ago, a 20-year-old corpsman named Doc Hollister got pulled out of a burning Humvee by a gunny sergeant with lake water eyes. And I have spent 40 years trying to pay that back. And tonight you are the way I pay it back. Is that a deal? Ezra closed his eyes. Yes, Corpsman, that is a deal. That evening, Delia cooked dinner. She made pot roast, potatoes, green beans from a jar she had canned in August, biscuits. She set 3 places at the table. Wade ate 2 plates. He did not apologize for it. Ezra ate more than he had eaten in a year. He told a story about his platoon sergeant in Kandahar, a dumb funny story about a goat, and he laughed when he told it, and Delia heard a sound she had not heard since 2011. Her brother's laugh. She turned toward the sink and held a dish towel to her face so they would not see her cry. Wade saw anyway. He did not say anything. Some tears a person has to cry in private. After dinner, Wade helped her with the dishes, just stood next to her at the sink drying, two old hands and two younger hands working quiet. Wade, ma'am, I read some of your wife's Bible last night. I know, I saw the marker was moved. She wrote in the margins. She did. Next to the part in Romans about all things working together for good, she wrote even this, Lord, even this. Wade stopped drying. She wrote that the day our son died. I'm sorry, Wade. He was quiet. Ma'am, I have carried my son's death for 40 years like a stone around my neck. I have blamed God for it. I have blamed myself for it. I have never once in 40 years been able to say those three words the way my Mary said them. Which three? Even this, Lord. He set the dish towel down, but I am starting to think I might learn how. Monday came in gray. The farmer had been right. The wind had turned overnight. The sky was the color of old pewter. A thin rain started just before dawn and did not know whether it wanted to be rain or sleet. Delia was up at 4:30. She had not slept. She sat at the kitchen table in her robe, and she drank 3 cups of coffee, and she read the same passage from Mary Caldwell's Bible 4 times. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. She did not feel brave, she felt tired. But she got up at 5:15 and she got dressed in her waitress uniform, like any other Monday, and she went upstairs and kissed her brother on the forehead while he was sleeping, and she whispered, Ez, I love you. Whatever happens today, I love you. Ezra's eyes opened. D, yeah, I love you too. You remember the plan? I remember. You remember to do exactly what Wade says. I remember. Ez, if something happens to me today, don't. Ez, don't D. We are coming home together tonight. Both of us. That is the plan. That is the only plan there is. She looked at him a long moment. Then she nodded. She kissed him again. She went downstairs. She put on her coat. She opened the front door. Doc Hollister was on the porch in a brown barn coat drinking coffee from a thermos. Morning, ma'am. Morning, Doc. Your chariot awaits. She walked with him out to the truck. The rain was steady. The wheels hissed on the wet road all the way to the diner. Doc did not try to make small talk. She appreciated it more than she could have said. Roz's roadside had never been so quiet on a Monday morning. The open sign was on. The coffee was brewed. The grill was hot. But the regulars had not come. Word had gone around the county the way word did in a small town. Stay home Monday. Something's coming to Roz's. You don't need to see it. Only Hank the old rancher had come in at 6:30. Roz had handed him a cup of coffee and a biscuit and walked him right back out the door. Rosalind, Hank had said, what is happening in this diner? Hank, you go home. You call me tomorrow. I'll tell you then. Is Delia all right? She is going to be. Hank had stood on the porch a moment. Then he had nodded. You call me. I will. By 7:30, the diner was full, but not with customers. Wade sat at the counter in his cut. For the first time in 4 days, he was wearing it. The president's patch on his chest, the dead man's hand on his shoulder. Doc was in the booth by the window. Old Bill was at the back booth with a newspaper. 3 more men sat in the kitchen drinking coffee with Roz. Another 4 were out in the lot in 2 pickup trucks. And scattered around the neighborhood a block in every direction, the rest of Wade's men were at their posts. 28 men, most of them old. Oh, I'm on. All of them quiet. Behind the counter, wearing her apron hair pulled back, stood Delia Brennan. Her hands were not shaking today. She did not know why. Maybe because she had cried all the tears she had. Maybe because she was too tired to be afraid anymore. Or maybe because 30 men were watching over her. In the back hallway out of sight of the dining room sat Ezra. His wheelchair was angled so he could see the whole floor through the crack of the kitchen door. On the table beside him was a sidearm. Not loaded. Wade had been clear. Son, your being here is what matters. You are not pulling a trigger today. Yes, Gunny. FBI Special Agents Powell and Shaw were in the walk-in cooler with the door cracked. They had been there since 5. They would stay there until Wade gave the signal. Carl Weathers was in his cruiser 3 blocks away, parked at an angle where he could see the diner's front lot. He had a wire under his shirt. He had not eaten breakfast. He had kissed his wife that morning and told her he loved her, and she had looked at him strange, and he had said, just because. The clock on the wall said 8:15. They waited. At 8:47, a black pickup truck pulled into the lot of Delia's empty house on the other side of town. Donnie Ray Brennan got out of the driver's seat. 6 men got out with him. They were not his usual crew. His usual crew were small-timers. These 6 were bigger, harder, men he had brought down from Des Moines for the job. Donnie Ray had a pistol tucked in his belt. He had a second one in his boot. He had told his men this was going to be simple. A scared waitress, a crippled brother, in and out in 20 minutes. He walked up to the porch. He tried the door. Locked. He nodded at the biggest of the 6. The man took a step back and kicked the door in. They went inside. The house was empty. Donnie Ray stood in the living room, stood on the floral couch where he had sat 8 days earlier. He looked around slow. Where are they? One of the men said. Donnie Ray's eyes fell on the coffee table. On the coffee table was a single piece of yellow legal pad paper, folded, with his name on it. He picked it up. He opened it. In Delia's careful handwriting, it said, Donnie Ray. If you want to talk, I am at Roz's. Come alone. Or don't come. I am done running. Delia. Donnie Ray stared at the paper a long time. Then he began to laugh. Boys, he said. She wants a show. Let's give her a show. He crumpled the paper. He threw it on the coffee table. He walked out to the truck. The truck headed for Roz's. Across the street, parked in a green sedan with its hood up like it had broken down a biker named Whiskey, watched the pickup pull away. He picked up a handheld radio. Preacher, rabbits in the bow. Heading your way. 7 rabbits total. Etal a 9 minutes. At Roz's Wade keyed his own radio once. Click. The signal. Every man in the diner looked up at the clock. 9 minutes. At 8:56, the pickup pulled into Roz's lot. Donnie Ray sat in the driver's seat a moment. He looked through the big plate glass window into the diner. He could see Delia behind the counter wiping it down. He could see one old biker in a booth reading a newspaper. He could see another old man at the counter hunched over coffee. It looked exactly like he had expected. A waitress. 2 old men. Easy pickings. He checked his pistol. He smiled. Boys, I'll go in first with Reese and Hallie. You 4 stay out here. Watch the lot. Anybody comes up, you take them. Understand? 3 nods. Engine off. Doors slamming. Donnie Ray walked up to the door of Roz's roadside diner at 8:57 on the morning of October 14th, 2019. He pushed the door open. The little bell above the door chimed. Delia looked up from the counter. Morning, cousin, he said. Morning, Donnie. Put the rag down, sweetheart. We're going to have a conversation. Reese, the big one, stepped in behind him. Hallie, the skinny one with the tattooed neck, stepped in on the other side. The other biker at the counter did not look up from his coffee. The one in the booth turned a page of his newspaper. Donnie Ray walked to the counter. He put his hands on it. Cousin, you've had your little dramatic note. That was cute. Now you're going to give me what I came for. And what is that, Donnie? The journal, Dee Dee. The journal your daddy left. The one you thought I didn't know about. The one that's got my name all over it. She was very still. Donnie, there is no journal. Don't lie to me. There is no journal. My daddy died of a heart attack. You said so yourself. Sheriff said so. The doctor said so. I loved my daddy, Donnie Ray, but he did not leave anything behind. Donnie Ray's eyes narrowed. Cousin, do not play with me. I am not playing. I am telling you the truth. He was very quiet a moment. Then he pulled the pistol from his belt. He laid it on the counter in front of her. Dee Dee, you are going to tell me where that journal is. You are going to tell me in the next 30 seconds. Or I am going to put 1 bullet in your knee. And if you still don't tell me, I am going to go find your crippled brother. And I am going to do worse things to him than he has ever imagined. Delia looked at him. Her hand was not shaking. Her voice was not shaking. She said, Donnie Ray, you just said on tape that you are going to shoot me. You just said that you killed Lisa Matthews. You just said that you have plans for my brother. You said all of that out loud, in front of witnesses. She leaned forward. You are done, cousin. For a full second, Donnie Ray Brennan did not understand. Then he did. He grabbed for the pistol. He never touched it. The door to the kitchen banged open. The door to the back hallway banged open. The door of the walk-in cooler banged open. The front door swung wide behind him. Men came out, and more men, and more. From the kitchen, 3 bikers, pistols up. From the back hallway, Ezra Brennan in his wheelchair flanked by 2 bikers with shotguns. From the cooler, Agent Powell. Agent Shaw, both FBI, both yelling, FBI. Hands, hands. From the front door, old Bill rising from his booth with a 45. Doc rising from his booth with another. And from the counter, the man who had been sitting hunched over his coffee. He straightened up. He slid his skull cap back on his head. He turned on his stool. Wade Caldwell looked Donnie Ray Brennan in the eye. Donnie Ray Brennan, he said slow and quiet, you have been barking at the wrong door, boy. Reese reached for his weapon. He was on the floor before he got it out. Old Bill's foot on his wrist. Hallie tried to turn for the door. Two of Wade's men from the lot were already coming through the door. The four of Donnie Ray's men he had left outside were already face down in the gravel. Whiskey had taken them one by one when they came around the side of the truck. Quiet, efficient, no shots fired. Hallie raised his hands. He raised. Donnie Ray Brennan, 45 years old meth dealer murderer of at least two people, looked around the diner. He counted. 30 men, one waitress, one Marine in a wheelchair, two FBI agents, every exit covered. His pistol was still on the counter. He made a choice. He lunged for it. What happened next, nobody in that diner ever forgot. The pistol was 18 inches from Donnie Ray's hand. Wade was 6 feet away. Doc was behind him. The FBI agents were both yelling. But the man who moved first was the one in the wheelchair. Ezra Brennan had been Marine infantry. Ezra Brennan had not forgotten what Marine infantry taught him, even with one leg, and 8 years of bad dreams and 4 prescription pills he no longer needed. He shoved off the wall with his good arm. His chair shot forward across the linoleum. 10 feet. 12 feet. Donnie Ray's fingers closed on the pistol. Ezra hit him at the hip. The wheelchair took Donnie Ray's legs out from under him. The pistol spun across the counter. Donnie Ray went down hard on his back. Ezra tipped sideways out of the chair and landed across Donnie Ray's chest, one forearm across the man's throat, pinning him, holding him exactly the way he had pinned an insurgent in Kandahar 100 years ago before the world went white. You do not touch my sister, Ezra said. His voice was quiet, steady. You do not touch my sister. Agent Powell was on them in half a second, handcuffs out, and the last thing Donnie Ray Brennan saw before the agent hauled him up and marched him out was the face of a one-legged Marine looking down at him with no fear in his eyes at all. Delia stood behind the counter with both hands pressed to her mouth. Wade walked over to Ezra. He crouched down. He put a hand on the Marine's shoulder. Corporal, he said, Gunny, that was a fine piece of infantry work, son. Gunny, yeah, I remembered. Wade's eyes filled. You sure did. He helped Ezra back into the chair. Doc was already there with his bag, checking the Marine's hand, which had scraped raw on the linoleum. Ezra waved him off. Ezra was looking for his sister. Delia was coming around the counter. She dropped to her knees by his chair and threw her arms around his neck, and she cried in a way she had not cried in 5 years. He held her, his hand in her hair. Wade stepped back. He let them have the moment. He had given himself many such moments across many years alone. He knew their value. They took Donnie Ray out in cuffs. They took Reese and Hallie. They took the 4 from the lot. 7 men in the back of 2 squad cars. Agent Shaw on the radio. Agent Powell with Carl Weathers beside him. Now badge still on his belt, face wet. At the edge of the parking lot as they were loading Donnie Ray into the cruiser, he turned his head and he looked back at the diner. Delia was on the porch. Wade was behind her. Donnie Ray shouted, Hey, Dee Dee. She flinched. Dee Dee, you want to know about your daddy? You want to know the truth about Saint Sean Brennan? Wade took a step forward. Delia put a hand on his arm. Let him talk. I can hear it. Ma'am, I can hear it, Wade. Donnie Ray grinned through the cruiser window. Your daddy was in with me from the start, Dee Dee. Your daddy ran errands for me for 15 years. Your daddy knew where the bodies were because he helped bury them. That journal. That was a man trying to save his own skin at the end because he knew I was going to kill him. Your saint was a snake, Dee Dee, and he died a snake. Agent Powell shoved his head down and pushed him into the car. The door slammed. The cruiser pulled away. Delia stood on the porch. Her hand was still on Wade's arm. She did not speak. Wade turned her gently to face him. Ma'am, look at me. Wade, look at me, Miss Brennan. Delia, look at me. She looked at him. I read every page of your father's journal. I read it 3 times. Your father was not a snake. Your father was a man who made a mistake when he was young. Your father drove a truck for Donnie Ray a few times in the 80s. He did not know what he was carrying. When he figured it out, he quit. Donnie Ray held it over his head for the rest of his life. Your father wrote all of that down on page 4. He was not hiding it, he was confessing it. Delia was shaking. Your father was a man who carried a secret for 30 years because he was ashamed. And then when he saw something evil happen to an innocent girl, he risked everything to write it down so someone someday could fix it. That is not a snake, ma'am. That is a man who spent his whole life trying to atone. Do not let a killer in handcuffs take your father from you. Do you hear me? She was crying. I hear you. Your daddy loved you. I know he did. And he was a good man at the end. The ending is what matters, ma'am. Always. The ending is what matters. She nodded. She wiped her face on her apron. Roz came out onto the porch behind them. She put her hand on Delia's back. She did not say anything. She did not need to. That evening, after the agents had taken their statements, after Carl Weathers had sat in Roz's office for 2 hours and written out everything he knew after Ezra had fallen asleep on the couch in the back office with a blanket Roz had tucked around him, Wade sat at the counter with a fresh cup of coffee. He was alone. The diner was closed. Roz came out of the back. She sat down on the stool next to him. She slid a long envelope across the counter. Preacher. Roz, I have been holding this for 30 years. He looked at her. What is it? Open it. He opened it. Slow. Inside was a single folded sheet of letter paper. Yellowed. Creased many times. The handwriting was familiar. It was handwriting he had not seen in a very long time. It was Mary's handwriting, his Mary. He froze. Roz, read it, preacher. Roz, where did you read it? He unfolded the paper. My dearest Wade, if you are reading this, Rosalind has decided it is time. God bless her. She has a better sense of timing than you or I ever did. I am writing this in April of 1989. The doctors have told me I have maybe 6 months. I am not afraid. I am ready. You know I have been ready for a long time. But before I go, I have to tell you something that I should have told you the day our son died. I have been a coward about this for 10 years. I am not going to be a coward anymore. Wade, Danny's death was not your fault. I know you do not believe this. I know you have carried it for a decade. I know you left the pulpit because of it. I know you started drinking because of it. I know you blame yourself every day, every hour of your life. My love, listen to me. You fell asleep on the porch because you had been up all night with Danny when he had the fever. You were exhausted. Exhaustion is not sin. Exhaustion is not negligence. Exhaustion is a human being reaching the end of what a human being can bear. And you had been bearing so much for so long for all of us. And Wade, the gate to the pond, I did not close it that morning. You have blamed yourself for 10 years for a gate I did not close. I was in the garden. I had been in and out of that gate 12 times with the wheelbarrow. I did not close it the last time. I saw Danny napping on the porch next to you, and I thought he was safe. I went inside to get a glass of water. I was gone 5 minutes. 5 minutes. When I came out, you were running toward the pond and screaming. I did not tell you. I have not told anyone for 10 years. I was afraid, Wade. I was afraid that if you knew, you would hate me. I was afraid you would leave. I was afraid I would lose you on top of losing him. So I let you carry it. And you carried it so hard that I lost you anyway. My love, forgive me, forgive yourself, and most of all, find your way back to God. He never left you, Wade, you left him, and he is standing exactly where you left him waiting. All you have to do is turn around. I will see you again. On that day, I will be first in line, and I will hold our son, and I will hand him to you, and you will hold him, and you will know that none of it was ever your fault. All my love for all my life, and for all the life that comes after it. Your Mary. Wade set the letter down on the counter. He put both hands flat on the formica. He closed his eyes. And Wade Caldwell, 68 years old, president of the Midwest, chapter of the Hells Angels, cried. He cried the way a man cries who has not let himself cry in 40 years. He cried the way Delia had cried that morning on the porch. He cried the way Ezra had cried in the booth by the window. He cried the way Carl Weathers had cried in the parking lot of the Quick Stop. Roz did not say anything. She put her old small hand on his back. She kept it there. After a long while, Wade was able to speak. Roz. Yes, preacher. Why now? Because Mary told me to give it to you when you were ready. For 30 years, preacher, you were not ready. This week, I watched you walk into a diner and take your hat off to a working woman. This week, I watched you sit down across from a broken Marine and remind him he was a man. This week, I watched you get down on your knees, preacher. I know you did. I could see it in your eyes Tuesday morning. You were ready. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. Roz, all those years. I know. All those years I could have. I know, preacher. Mary, oh Mary. Roz's hand was on his back. She has been waiting, preacher. She has been waiting a long time. But she is not in a hurry. You do not need to hurry either. You just need to start walking again. He nodded. He could not speak. Roz let him be. 3 weeks later, a check arrived at Delia Brennan's Blue House. It was drawn on an account called the Midwest Brotherhood Writers Association. It was signed by a man named Marcus Hollister. It was for $47,000. Attached to the check was a handwritten note on Wade Caldwell's cramped, careful script. Miss Brennan. The boys took up a collection. They also sold an old panhead one of them had been hanging on to for 40 years. Don't argue with us. This is for rent, past and future. This is for a ramp for your brother's chair so he can get into the bathroom. This is for a new coat for both of you. This is for whatever is left after. You do not owe us anything. This is not a loan. This is what men do when women stand up in front of them and remind them what courage looks like. Keep the change. Wade. Delia held the check. She cried for a while. Then she laughed. Then she cried again. Then she drove out to the Starlight Motel. But the Angels had been gone for 2 weeks. There was nobody to give the check back to. She drove to Roz's instead. Roz looked at the check. Roz folded it up. Roz handed it back. You take that, child. You take it and you build a life with it. Men like Wade do not give money they want back. Men like Wade give money because they cannot give back the years they lost. You understand? Delia understood. Wade came back to Ashfield in May. He pulled his shovel head into the gravel lot at Roz's on a Tuesday morning. He walked in. He took the booth by the window. Delia came out of the kitchen with the coffee pot. Wade, ma'am, we have been waiting. I know. You look different. I feel different. She poured his coffee. She sat down across from him. Roz's was empty between rushes. Where have you been? A lot of places, ma'am. Most of all, I have been at First Baptist in Iowa City. I called the pastor there in January, a man named Reverend Hayes. I told him I used to stand behind his pulpit 40 years ago. I told him I walked away from it. I told him I wanted to come home. What did he say? He told me to come on Sunday. He told me to sit in the back. He told me not to rush, so I sat in the back. Every Sunday for 4 months. And 2 Sundays ago, he asked me to come up to the front and give the benediction. It was 40 seconds long. I could not say much, but I said it. Delia's eyes were wet. Wade, ma'am, I am so glad. Me too, ma'am, me too. He drank his coffee. She let him drink it in peace. When he was done, he said, Ma'am, next Sunday, Reverend Hayes has asked me to preach my first sermon in 40 years. And I wondered if you and your brother would consider making the drive down to Iowa City. I would be honored to have you there. She did not hesitate. We'll be there. The church was full that Sunday. Word had traveled. Wade Caldwell was back in the pulpit. Men who had heard him preach in the 70s had come. Men and women, many of them gray now themselves. Some of them on canes, some of them with oxygen tanks. One old woman in a wheelchair pushed up to the front by her great-granddaughter. In the third row on the left side sat a 38-year-old waitress in her only good dress next to a 34-year-old Marine in his Marine Corps jacket who had walked into the church on his own 2 legs. In the second row on the right side sat Rosalind Kowalski, 79 years old, silver hair in a tight bun for the first time since her husband's funeral in 1982. In the back pew in uniform sat Carl Weathers and his wife. He had pleaded down to a 3-year probationary sentence and had kept his badge by cooperating. He had cried when the judge read the verdict. His boys had been at that hearing. His boys had hugged him in the hallway after. His boys had said, Dad, we love you. Wade walked up to the pulpit. He looked out at the congregation. He held a small wooden cross in his hand. 4 decades old, carved by a 4-year-old boy with a pocket knife. He laid the cross on the pulpit. Next to it, he laid a folded yellow letter, cracked and soft with age. Then he spoke. My name is Wade Caldwell. Most of you know that. Some of you knew me when. Some of you will not recognize me, and I do not blame you. I have been gone a long time. He paused. I want to tell you about a waitress. She is sitting right there, in the third row, in the blue dress. Her name is Delia Brennan, and last October she changed my life. Delia flushed. Ezra squeezed her hand. She did not mean to change my life. She just stood up to a man who was yelling at her. She said 11 words, and she said them with her hand shaking. She said, shout at me again, mister, and you're done in this diner. A small laugh rippled through the pews. I was the man she was really talking to, not the young fool who was actually yelling at her. She was talking to all of us. Every man in that diner who had been too tired or too hard or too hurt or too proud to remember how to look at a working woman or any person. She was calling us back. He looked down. My brothers and sisters, I have spent 40 years as a man who walked away from God. I had reasons. I had griefs. I had lost my son. I had lost my wife. I had lost my faith. I thought I was done. I thought the well was dry. He picked up the wooden cross. My son Daniel carved this for me 1 week before he drowned. He was 4 years old. I have carried it every day of my life since. For 40 years, it was a reminder that I had failed, a reminder that I was not worthy. He picked up the letter. Then last autumn, a dear friend gave me this letter. It was written by my wife, Mary, who has been with the Lord for 30 years. She wrote it the year before she died. She asked her friend to hold it until I was ready to read it. He did not read it aloud. He held it up. In this letter, my wife told me that what I had been carrying for 40 years was not mine to carry. She told me that I had forgiven everyone in my life except the one person I most needed to forgive, which was myself. She told me that God was standing exactly where I had left him. She told me I only had to turn around. His voice cracked. He steadied it. Brothers and sisters, today I am turning around. He laid the letter down on top of the cross. The rest of this sermon is going to be short. I'm going to tell you one thing, and then I am going to ask Reverend Hayes to finish. He gripped the sides of the pulpit. It is never too late. It is never ever too late. It was not too late for me at 68. It was not too late for a broken Marine who thought his life was over. It was not too late for a deputy who thought he had sold his soul for good. It was not too late for a father who had hidden a sin for 15 years and then died trying to set it right. It was not too late for my Mary to write a letter that would save her husband 30 years after she was gone. It is not too late for whatever you are carrying right now in this pew. He paused. If you are carrying something tonight, my friends, I am going to ask you to do what I did. Set it down. Just set it down. Right here, right now. God is standing where you left him. He is not tired. He is not impatient. He has been waiting. He stepped back from the pulpit. That is all I have. The church was silent. Then slow, one by one, people began to weep. Not loud, just quiet. All over the sanctuary. Delia was weeping. Ezra was weeping, his good hand on his sister's shoulder. Roz was weeping, a clean white handkerchief pressed to her face. Reverend Hayes got up. He put his hand on Wade's shoulder. He walked him back to his seat. Then he finished the service. 2 years later, on a cold October afternoon, Wade Caldwell died in his sleep. He was 70 years old. He had been living in a small apartment behind the parsonage of First Baptist in Iowa City. He had been preaching twice a month. He had been riding his shovelhead on Saturday afternoons. He had been eating Sunday dinners with Delia and Ezra Brennan every week for 24 months. He had been calling Delia daughter by the end. She had been calling him Papa Wade. He went peaceful, in his chair, with a Bible open on his lap to the 23rd Psalm, with the little wooden cross in one hand and Mary's letter in the other. Doc Hollister found him. Doc had driven over to have coffee with him that morning. Doc sat down on the couch across from him. Doc looked at him a long time. Then Doc said quiet, "All right, preacher. All right, you go on home." He called Delia. The reporter from the Cedar Rapids Gazette came to the diner the week after the funeral. She was young, she was curious, she had heard the story in pieces and she wanted the whole thing. She sat down across from Roz Kowalski at the counter. She took out her notebook. She asked her questions. Roz answered them slow and careful. She talked about Sean Brennan. She talked about Donnie Ray's trial. She talked about Ezra's carpentry business, which was doing well. She talked about Delia, who had just finished her GED and was starting community college in January. She talked about Carl Weathers, who had kept his badge and his family. She talked about Wade Caldwell for a long time. At the end, the reporter said, "Mrs. Kowalski, I just have one more question. What do you think the lesson of this whole story is if you had to put it in a sentence?" Roz looked out the window. The afternoon sun was coming through the glass. A line of old men sat at the counter. A little boy at a booth was drawing on his placemat in crayon. Delia Brennan was pouring coffee and laughing at something a rancher had said. Above the register, where it had been hanging for a year, was a wooden sign. Hand-carved by Ezra Brennan, it read, "Shout at a waitress here and you're done. House rules." Roz smiled. "Child," she said, "I'll tell you what I think the lesson is." She folded her hands. It is never too late to say the thing you need to say. It is never too late to hear the thing you need to hear. It is never too late to set down the thing you have been carrying. It is never too late to stand up with your hands shaking and tell the truth. It is never too late for a broken man to be mended. It is never too late for an angry man to find his way home. It is never too late for any of us. She paused. And sometimes young Lady God sends his angels in the most unexpected leather jackets. And sometimes the toughest man in the room is the one brave enough to bow his head. And sometimes 11 words from a tired waitress save a man's soul. The reporter wrote it all down. She put her notebook away. She ordered the biscuits and gravy. Outside on Highway 20, a single motorcycle went by, slow rolling east into the afternoon sun. Its rider was not Wade Caldwell, but the sound was the same. And somewhere, the old men in the diner still believed in Wade Caldwell was standing in front of his wife Mary and his son Daniel and a red-haired Marine named Danny Calloway, and he was holding all three of them at once, and he was not letting go.